Hey there, what I see is people letting their businesses run their lives versus them leading their business to love their life. I see this in corporate jobs, and I see where we step into expectations that other people have of us that do not honor us and allow us to lead our own life. Welcome to this episode, and I'm glad you're here to listen.
From the corners of my mind is where I find my sanity.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Lead Your Life with Debbie Heiser. I am just thrilled to have my good friend Shannon Pawley with us today. Shannon and I go back a few years. We met through a common, my business coach and Shannon's business coach, Amira, and we didn't really know each other that well. I don't know how that happened, but there's enough of us that have followed Amira that sometimes you're in a room with a lot of people, and we had talked briefly, but not really gotten to know each other until Shannon and I both went to Paris together. And yes, it was wonderful. And we spent some downtime together on a carousel outside the Louvre and had lunch at the Louvre together. And Shannon is one of my favorite people now. And there is some interesting sides to Shannon. She has this like super playful that I'm hoping to draw out a little bit in our podcast today, and has a love for Disney. And then also this very business, you are a powerhouse in what you do. And so I'm going to turn it over to you and let you introduce yourself, and what you do and how you serve in the world. So tell us who you are.
Wonderful. So hi, everyone. My name is Shannon Pawley. I am an attorney in Atlanta. And what I always emphasize is I couldn't be happier with what I do. It's taken me a journey to get to where I am, but it is amazing how your passions are created as little flickers in your youth, and they just magnify and almost directing you intentionally, unintentionally. The universe, being God, whatever it is directing you to where you go. So what I always emphasize is that I am an estate planning and elder law attorney. And this area of law that I practice in, it definitely started in high school, where I was a volunteer at convalescent centers and nursing homes. And while I was there, I definitely got to see the difference between the haves, the have-nots, those with active family involvement, the isolation of being alone. And that had a lasting handprint on my heart. And I'll say that when I went to law school, that was my original intention. I wanted to continue that passion. And so when I first got out of law school, I worked for a small boutique tax and planning law firm in Metro Detroit. And while I was there, I got a master's of law in tax. I was building up a great reputation. And then, much like many of us in our younger age, I had dollar signs waved before me. I was actually recruited by a national law firm out of Boston, the largest creditor rights law firm in the US. And I ended up joining them. And I served as their vice president of litigation operations. I was with them for a little bit over 13 years. During that time, I assisted in taking them from presidents in 4 states to presidents in 36 states. It was a beautiful opportunity of growth as a professional. But what I'll say, that while I was growing as a professional, I was dying as an attorney. I was learning to hate the practice of law. And what I'll say is my watershed moment was definitely when I was working with a young attorney trying to train them how to do what's called a creditor's exam. And this is an event where judgment creditors, attorney can bring in a judgment debtor, they get sworn in, then you take them off to a side room and you question them about their assets. And I remember this very vividly. And so we all got sworn in. We're going to the side room, and I go in first. I'm at the table, and my judgment debtor walks in. Her eyes are red, puffy. You could tell she'd been crying. And as she walks past me, she has this stack of money and this piece of paper underneath. She goes, "Here, I want to resolve this. I just can't do this anymore." And I'm like, "Slow down. Let's talk here." And in talking with her, I ended up finding out that her husband had died 2 weeks earlier. And that on the way to the courthouse, she stopped by a pawn shop. And she pawned both her husband and her wedding band.
Oh, wow.
That was it.
Oh gosh, that just tugs at my heart. Yeah.
And I couldn't stay there. So within a matter of months thereafter, as fate would have it, I ended up having the opportunity to join my former law partner, Victoria Collier, down here in Georgia. And I got to get back to my original passion estate planning, asset protection, elder law, because people should not lose everything when their mind or body starts to fail them.
Yeah.
You should be able to age with dignity, grace, independence, and that's the passion, that's the focus. And as I introduce myself and my passion are synonymous. And that is why I know this was a roundabout introduction to myself, but to me, it's so important because this passion that I have, which was definitely heightened by my own story with my mother being diagnosed with vascular dementia 7 years ago. I've walked the walk of many of my clients as the child of a dementia patient. I've seen the effects of caregiving on a parent. And there's just such a beauty in my heart of hearts, knowing that I was put on this earth to help people in these situations. And what's just all the more beautiful is I've noticed as I've become more dedicated to my passion, I have much like a beacon been a light to other people coming to me that have similar passions. And what's so great is we're almost like this beautiful gem that is with each new team member, a new facet to that gem to shine all the brighter and be a stronger, valuable asset to our clients when we interact.
Yeah, Shannon, thank you. There's so much there that I want to unpack. So we're going to dig in because like I am such a firm believer that you have to understand what your purpose on this earth is. Like I know, and I'm going to ask you to get really succinct here too. I know that I'm a connector, I'm a teacher, and I am an inspirer. And if I'm doing any one of those three things, it doesn't matter the work that I'm doing, but if I'm doing those three things, I am like lit up. That is my like purpose. That is my why. That's why I do what I do. And so I get that same feeling from you. And this why, like when did you know, like you have a heart for elderly because of that experience that you had working as a young person, but what drew you to law? Like what was the factor there? Like that's the conduit for you to do what's truly in your heart, but like how did that come about?
So I used to always see myself as an attorney, as a young individual. I used to have this whole vision of where my life was going to take me. I had this vision that I was going to go into the military, I was going to go JAG, I was going to have this great established relationship within the military service to lead me ultimately to a Secretary of State position. When I was young, that was my whole passion. And what I was focusing on, or at least that's what I thought that I wanted. I was a congressional page junior in high school, making all of those connections. But I started to realize that I can make, through micro connections, I can make macro changes. And I started to realize that my focus actually veers towards those that need the protection, that are the forgotten generation. And you were talking about, by nature, I am a teacher, I am an advocate, and I am a protector. Those are my top three. And all of those foundational focuses, needs, purposes are so solidified within this passion. And I never realized, it's one of those things that you're in a room and you're stumbling around and you don't really know what's in there. Then all of a sudden something happens and the light turns on. And it's just amazing what you see and what you can create when your eyes are actually open.
Yeah. Okay. So you took this big step knowing like early on, right? And I don't know, I'm not going to speak for everyone else, but I had kind of a knowing that one day I would be doing what I'm doing today. I didn't have it completely figured out, but I knew that I would be doing this. And so like going from that and doing what you're doing now, as you think about the course of your life, like, did you just always have this knowing, or did you have moments where you're like, oh, and you kind of squirreled off and veered off? Tell us a little bit about that, because you made some big leaps, not only within your profession, but within geographic, right?
Yes,
like I'm like Detroit to Boston. I didn't realize you were in Boston. I learned something new. And then Boston to Atlanta to go into business for your, with a partner, and now yourself. And yeah, so as I think about all that, where are some areas that you tripped up that if you could say to the listeners, learn from my mistake, what would be one of those?
Well, one of the first learns from my mistake is to not think that you can't do it on your own. I had, and I still have a very good relationship with my former partner, but I thought that I needed the security of a partner to succeed. And one thing I will say that I've learned from the universe, I'm a little stubborn. So sometimes the universe has to push me off the ledge. And some of my biggest growth moments have been when the universe has pushed me off the ledge because I keep backing up thinking I don't want to be there. And when I'm pushed off the ledge, you have two choices. You can fall or you can fly. And every single time in those moments of terror, what could have been the lowest points of my life, at time I thought were the lowest points of my life, were actually some of the most beautiful points of my life where I got to see myself starting to fly.
That's so cool. And Shannon, I want to spend just a little bit more time on the professional side, and then I want to dig in a little deeper on the other side. So tell us, like, I don't really know, and I'm not certain my listeners do. I understand estate planning, but what is elder law? Like, can you describe that in a short scenario?
Sure. So elder law was really focusing on long-term care. So long-term care is extremely, extremely expensive, especially when you're dealing with skilled nursing. Here in Metro Atlanta, skilled nursing ranges between $5,000 to $16,000 a month.
Oh my gracious.
That is going to do a significant dent on the middle-class America's estate, if not fully depleted. And so the focus of elder law is asset preservation for the purposes of long-term care. I myself and my team, we focus on both proactive and crisis Medicaid planning, where our focus is to try to preserve as much, if not all, of the assets that the person or the marital couple has and get them qualified onto Medicaid. Because then the beauty of Medicaid is that, think of it kind of like gap insurance you may have with your car, to where you have a patient liability each month, which your patient liability is going to be the equivalent of your income, which might only be, at the end of the day, $1,000. But when you're on the Medicaid program covers that gap for you to be in that facility that if you were private paying would have been $10,000, $12,000, $16,000. So elder law really is focusing on that long-term care need. And I know, especially with my mother's situation, nobody wakes up and goes, I'm so excited about going to a nursing home or a skilled nursing facility. But there comes a time where caregivers need that reprieve because they cannot adequately provide the services anymore. And that's the other thing I love here. Not only am I able to preserve the assets, but I'm able to psychologically and counsel the caregivers, the family members, because there is a lot of guilt that family members have when they have to make this difficult choice. And that's another wonderful thing. I always make the comment, I'm an attorney and counselor at law, and I love the counselor part here, because where I say that I'm an advocate, I am an advocate, but I'm an advocate to make sure that those that may not be normally recognized, or the forgotten generation, that they have a voice and that they're heard.
Yeah. And Shannon, thank you for that. And I don't know enough about your field, so this might seem like a silly question to any attorney that's listening, but I know you have a license. Are you able to work with people outside of the state of Georgia, or is it pretty much like a counselor, you have to have a certificate in different states to be able to work with different people?
It's similar to a counselor, like what you're talking about. There are state licensing boards. I myself, I'm licensed to practice law in both the states of Georgia as well as the state of Michigan. So I'm able to help people in either of those states. But what I'll also emphasize, especially kind of like what we were talking about right before our podcast today, I was just finishing my weekly seminar that I do online. And I have people from all over the US that attend my seminars. And I still encourage them to talk to me, because even if I can't give them direct guidance, I can still give them a trusted referral to someone that can assist them, because I can still ask them the right questions to figure out exactly what they need, even if I'm not the one that can provide it. Because my focus is making sure that people get the care and the focus they need, it doesn't necessarily always have to come by me. I'm not so egotistical as to think that I am the only one that can do everything and I'm the best at everything. Far from that. But what I'm good
Which is
at,
what makes you
I'm
good.
amazing
Yeah.
at.
Yeah. And that's what makes you great. And so Shannon, I normally ask this at the end of the podcast, but I think it's a good segue here. If someone was interested in signing up for your seminars, where would they go to do that? Would it be your website or is there a different way?
It would be. So what you would do is you go to www.elderlawgeorgia, Georgia spelled completely out.com. And when you get there, you'll get to our homepage and there'll be a dialog box that will come up. They'll give you the alert of what this week's seminar is. And you'll just hit register. It'll take you to a landing page. You'll register. Then from there, you will start to receive emails to remind you of the upcoming seminar. After the seminar, you'll get a replay. And what I emphasize is each week is a different focus, ranging from probate, basic estate planning, Medicaid strategy, trust strategy, etc.
That's great, Shannon. Thank you for that. That's a wonderful resource to give back and help other people understand and be educated. So I want to shift gears though, and I want to find out, because I know that you are a Disney fan. So tell me where this like love of Disney began for you.
So Disney has a lot of nostalgia for me. I've got many wonderful memories. When I got out of law school, every year up until my mother's dementia had prevented her from traveling, every year we went to Disney.
Oh,
and
fun.
so there's these beautiful memories that have happened there. But also, I am just intrigued by the storytelling that you have at Disney. And I think that one of the reasons that the customer service is so superior there, and it's one that I will admit I am trying to, and I do in times successfully, implement similar in my firm, but I think it's the story. And you're immersing the persons in the story and you're individualizing the story to that individual too.
Yeah.
And so that's really where all of that magic for Disney comes from for me. And I think that it's important that people are able to act as their natural child without feeling any form of judgment. Because what I will say, what I love about Disney is you will have those muscular 320-pound bodybuilder guys wearing cute little Mickey Mouse ears. They would do it nowhere else.
Right.
But it's because it's such a welcoming, festive, supportive environment that people are allowed to have their inner child released.
Yeah, that's so great, Shannon. And I think about too, have you read the book, and I can't remember the name of it, about Disney and their customer service?
Quite possibly, because I've read quite a few of the books about Disney's customer service and experience.
Yeah, so I'll have to show it to you because I have it. But ultimately, like one of the things I love about Disney is I don't like the crowds because I'm not like a big, huge like crowd person. But what I do love about Disney is I have the opportunity to go behind the scenes back when I worked for Sprint. And we did some team development with them, and understanding that part of what makes Disney Disney and so popular with people is they are very, very clear on their vision, and they empower their employees to live out that vision. And they are very clear that it is about the experience that the person has, and the only time they are allowed to jump out of character and not be like uber pleasant to someone is when safety is involved. If someone is unsafe, they can speak, like they can do what they need to do to get that person safe. And they are so clear on that. And I think it's really a really cool business case study to see how they do things from a business perspective. I'd love sometime to go down in their inner workings. I know you have to like be an employee to go down there, but I think that would be so cool. And you've been, how many Disney locations have you been to? Because I know you went in France.
So I went to Disneyland Paris. I've done Disneyland. I've done, of course, Disney World quite repeatedly. I did just book a trip for February to Disney's Aulani in Hawaii. And it is my goal that within about the next 4 years that I actually hit Tokyo and Shanghai.
Oh,
so
fantastic.
I haven't hit Tokyo and Shanghai. I have seen and visited Alani before, but I have not stayed there, which I'm excited about staying there in February next year.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Shanghai, as far as a city, is phenomenal. It's like unbelievable. When I was in China, it was like, it's just I can't even put words to it. Just, it's like New York and LA and Atlanta, every big city in the US put together, because the population is so huge. And
wow.
it's just, and you're going to get into a lot of people's photos because you're tall and you're a redhead.
Okay.
Because I was blonde, I am in numerous photos that of folks that live in China because they were enthralled with my blonde hair. So you're gonna just be prepared for that. But
That's
anyway,
awesome.
Shannon, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about yourself, for sharing about what you do and the passion. I know I can feel it and see it, and I know those folks that are listening will be able to hear it as well. And so thank you for being someone that ignites other people's flames and, shows by example that you lead a lit up life, and that sometimes it takes some work too, right? To get
Yes,
there.
ma'am.
So,
And thank you so
yeah.
much for having me. This has been a pleasure, Debbie.
Absolutely. One of my favorite people. So thank you again for joining us. And if you would like to learn a little bit more about me or gain some clarity on what you would like to do and how you would like to be an igniter in the world and lead your lit up life, please go out to my website, www.leadyourlituplife.com. It's also in the show notes, and sign up for a 30-minute clarity session. I promise you, you will be more clear after that 30 minutes than you were before you walked into it. With that, it's a wrap. Everybody have a fantastic week, and we'll see you next week.
Find your own kind of happy.